Hello, my name is Aidy. I am a TV presenter, I'm a broadcaster, I'm a journalist, I'm a radio presenter, I'm a content creator. Much like all of you here in the audience, I do a hell of a lot because I think that's what creativity really is. It's about delving into so many different elements to grow who you are, to grow your personality, to grow your business, and all these things. I have to apologize, I am looking a little bit tired today. I was at a Grindr party last night. Not what you may be thinking. The CEO of Grindr was in town for a pride party. In fact, the Scissor Sisters were there as well. The band, I mean, were also attending. So, I'm looking a little bit tired this morning, but nevertheless, I'm ready to give a beautiful keynote speech, and I'm so thankful to be here delivering this, which is all about turning your biggest weakness into your greatest strength. It was there earlier, that's why I'm pointing there. It's no longer there. We all have challenges that we face in our lives. I mean, put your hand up if you faced a challenge before. Have you faced a challenge? Yeah. And the thing about challenges is they are all very subjective. We can't look at one person who is going through something and think, oh, well, I'm not allowed to feel bad. I feel bad about thinking this is a challenge because this person is going through this and I'm going through this. Everything is subjective in the moment. And one of the things that I want to draw today from the talk that I do is about really delving into yourself to find self-love in the one thing or two things or 10 things or 20 things that you really feel are holding you back from being your best self. So the first question that I want to ask you all is, can you put your hand up if you've heard of something called Tourette syndrome? Have you heard of Tourette syndrome? Okay, so a good amount of people. And then put your hands down, but put them back up if you have a very good understanding in your mind of Tourette syndrome. Put your hand up for me again. Fantastic. So we have a couple of people here. Amazing. In the middle. So what if I was to now tell you that I am the only global TV presenter in the world with Tourette syndrome? The first question I often get asked by people is, but you don't swear. And I had a great and amazing little me swearing gag lined up, but we're not allowed to swear. So, but my response to that is, I swear all the effing time, but it's got nothing to do with my Tourette syndrome. I'm from Yorkshire and I have a foul mouth. Now, 10% of people with Tourette syndrome swear. It's known as coprolalia. Coprolalia is the element of inappropriate gestures or movements or sounds or whatever it might be. 90% of people with Tourette syndrome do not swear. Yet that has held back the community for a very, very long time. And I'll delve into that a little bit more as time goes on. But for those who do not have any understanding of what Tourette syndrome is, I'm going to unravel it a little bit for you now. It's referred to as a neurological disorder, which means it's in the brain. So it's genetics, it's handed down by DNA. And it comes across in the form of what we call tics. So a tic is like a twitch. It could be a sound, which is known as vocal, or it could be a movement, which is known as motor. So an example of a motor tic could be me rolling my eyes. It could be me shaking my head. It could be me rolling my shoulders. It could be me moving my leg. All the way to more severe tics, like when I was a little boy, I would have to jump and my legs would have to touch my bum at the exact same time. And if they didn't, I had to do it again and again and again and again until it felt right. Or if I was walking down cobblestones, unless my feet touched the exact center of the cobblestone, I'd have to do it again and again and again. And so it can be debilitating all the way to just a simple little eye roll, which is one of my main frequent tics right now. Then you've got vocal. So a vocal tic could be anything from a sniff or a cough, like a fake sniff or a cough, which was wonderful during COVID, I can tell you that. Or it could be a scream, or it could be a word. Anything that comes across in the form of a sound. Now that we have a kind of basic understanding of what Tourette syndrome is, I want to take you on a little journey of self-discovery and self-love. And at the end of this, it's all about happiness. It's all about, finding our inner selves. But there are some sad moments in this too. And we need to lean into those moments. And I'm going to take a little sip of my water just before I get started. Okay. So I want you to come with me on a journey. And I want to go back about 27 years to when I was a little boy, not to give away too much about my age. I know I look very young, I know, thank you. But we want to go back to all the way when I was 6 years old. And I worked my bum off. I'd worked so hard in acting school at this point to land this gig that had me being a child actor on one of the UK's most well-known channels. It was a show every day at 3:20 p.m. commissioned by one of the biggest kind of like kids TV entertainment production companies. And my co-presenter was the dude who went on to play Neville Longbottom in Harry Potter. So just to give you an idea at this point of how far that progression had gone from working my absolute arse off to get to that point. I was a happy kid. I was in the best moment of my life. I was radiating with joy. Everyone around me was just, the feeling was immense. 2 weeks after my 6th birthday, I started developing tics. I had an eye roll, which I still have today. I had a tic where I'd throw my neck back, which ended up giving me whiplash several times throughout my childhood. And I had a little noise where I go, whoop. 2 weeks after that, I was pushed off the show. My agent had gotten rid of me and my acting school dropped me. And that was it. There was no looking back. I tried to get back into the acting school I went to, and having gone from being the kind of star role who'd worked so much during that time to get to where I wasn't even allowed at the back of the hall because they didn't want any of the parents to see me. Now, Tourette's syndrome is a very interesting condition in that back then, 27 years ago, no one really knew what it was. The GP didn't know what it was. And so instead of being given love and understanding and compassion, you're pretty much punished. Instead of how can we help you at school and at home, I was made to stand in the corner of the stairs with my hands on my head because, you just got to stop doing those twitches. You've got to get over it. 95% of kids with Tourette's syndrome are bullied in school. And when I first started ticking, and at this point I'm a little boy going back into school, making these noises, making these movements, you can bet I was called everything under the sun. I was called a spacker, I was told that I was an abortion, and daily I was told that I should just kill myself. And that kind of stuff when you're a kid, it lives with you. And I absolutely hated my childhood. I despised not only my childhood, but I despised who I was as a person. Because when you're reminded on a daily basis that you should not even exist, it is so harrowing. So all my friends, gone. The neighbors who I used to hang around with, who brought me joy and solace, gone. The parents didn't want their kids hanging around that, special needs boy who would badly influence their children to do random things. So I spent a lot of my childhood indoors, on the computer, on the internet. And that's where I could just be myself, unapologetically myself. And when I was a kid, you couldn't even say the word Tourette's. You had to say the T word. It's the equivalent, the word Tourette's. Imagine being in Harry Potter and the word Voldemort is said. Oh God, we can't say that word. Like if someone said the word Tourette's, everything around me would shatter because it brought me so much shame. Now, we take a little bit of a twist here in the story because, yes, all these kind of sad things are happening and that's the brutal reality and the brutal nature of Tourette's syndrome when you're a child, sadly. But one thing that now I begin to realize when I was growing into my kind of early teenage years and I was online the whole time, I used to play this online 3D chat room called Habbo Hotel. Does anyone remember something called Habbo Hotel? Anyone remember that? You had a little character, you'd be in a little room and you get this furniture and you like build rooms and all this, that and the other. And when I was about 12 years old, for some reason, I just got this idea in my head to take the Deal or No Deal format and like turn it into one of these rooms, knowing that if people started playing the game, they thought they could win, but they wouldn't, so they'd end up giving me more furniture, which I would then sell on eBay to rich kids. And I was earning about $3,000 a year at the age of like 12 or 13 just by doing this. And I now realize that that's called entrepreneurism. That's called being an innovator. And so this was kind of the first sign of me looking into who I was as a person. And again, this story today is about me and my neurodivergence, but every single person here is going through a particular challenge in life or we live with something. So I want you to take the kind of understanding of what I'm going through and relate it to yourselves in whatever way you can. This will become more clear as time goes on throughout the chat today. So the next little step of progression for me was when I got into doing AS levels. And at that point, I was able to start doing theatre studies. And for me, that was just amazing because, Christ, you can see me now, I'm very theatrical. And so as a little boy growing into a teenager who wasn't allowed to do the one thing that made him so happy and being able to have that opportunity again, that kind of opened my confidence a little bit. And I'll never forget when I was doing my S levels and I went into the university placement office and I told them in there that I wanted to go to university. And sorry, that's what I was met with. The prospect of this Tourette kid going to university, going to any form of higher education was absolutely bewilderingly hilarious to the people who worked in the school. Now, 50% of people with Tourette's syndrome never go into higher education. 50% of people with Tourette's syndrome never get jobs. And they don't do that because they're petrified, absolutely petrified of being judged, much like in this situation. But when I was in that room with that dude who laughed in my face at the prospect of me going to university, something kind of like flipped in me. And I thought, hell no, you don't get to decide what my future's gonna be. And this was the beginning of this turning point and me saying, hell no. So I went out and I applied for universities and I got into university. I went to Lancaster University that I absolutely loved. I thought it was brilliant. And during this time, you know, throughout the whole of my childhood, I always hid my Tourette's. I mentioned that the T word, we couldn't call it Tourette's. So I would do two things. I would mask. Masking is whereby, for example, I'd cough loudly, which wasn't a tic, but I'd do my tic during that moment. So I'd cough, do the tic to get out of my system so I could try and pretend that it wasn't that. And the next thing that I do is suppress. So I would try so hard to hold in the tics throughout the day, but tics can't just be held in and disappear. It doesn't work like that. They have to come out. So at the end of the day, they will come out in full force. Now, the best way for me to try and describe what Tourette's syndrome feels like to you is it's like a mosquito bite. I want you to imagine you've been bitten by a mosquito right here on your arm, right here. And it's itching. You need to scratch this itch. It's, oh, you can feel it there. Oh my, I really need to scratch it, but I'm not going to because it will make it worse. But, and eventually you just got to cave in. You scratch. Oh my God, that feels so good. And then you have that moment of relief and then it comes back again. So at any point in time, I have a mosquito bite or an electricity running through my body, making me want to tic, apart from when I'm doing what I love, which is in a moment like this right now. You put me on TV or live radio or in front of a room of people or doing a podcast and it completely disappears. And that part is a superpower, which I'm going to come on to later. But it was important for me to mention what it feels like now before we continue on our little journey here. So I'm now at university. Fantastic. And I go to the placement office again because I'm doing a 4-year degree. And this was an advanced degree. So the little Tourette's boy is now on an advanced degree of 4 years because he kicks ass. Yay, oh, who would have thought, right? So my 3rd year, I had to do a placement. And I had always wanted to go to America. It'd always been a dream. Ever since I was in school, I managed to get on this politics trip to go to Washington, D.C. I didn't even study politics, but I was so obsessed with going to America that I got on it. And again, went to the placement department. I said, I want to go to America. Guess what happened? Guess what happened? Aidy, come on, you've got to be realistic. Why is any American employer going to hire someone on a visa with a disability? Like, they're not going to do that. Come on, you've got to be open-minded about this. Maybe, just a suggestion, but maybe instead of working this year, go back home, just stay at home, maybe like claim benefits for a year, do something that just, this is the kind of treatment that people are given when there is so little known about what they're living with. And so my whole kind of, pride kicked in again. I thought, hell no, absolutely not. So I sent over 6,000 emails to American employers and I got my goddamn internship. I ended up actually going to San Francisco of all places. Wasn't planned, went over to San Francisco, worked for a graphic design agency. And oh my goodness, what an amazing moment. 6,000 emails, you've got to put in the work. That's the first thing. Always put in the work. How can you turn your weakness into your greatest strength? You've got to work for it, but you've got to have that fuel behind it. And in San Francisco, a lot of amazing things happened. I started to find myself. A couple of weeks in, found my best friend, JP Leddy. I came out at long last. I had my first love, had my first heartbreak. And then after a couple of years in San Francisco, absolutely loving it. And by the way, at this point, I'm still pretending that I don't have Tourette's because I live in so much fear and shame with it. Moved back to the UK. And at this point, I'm working for a media company and I'm writing about travel, about food, about drinks, all these things that I really love, all these things I'm really passionate about. And about 2 years after being back in the UK, I'm just sitting there in the morning, I'm doing some work, and a message pops up from one of my really, really, really good friends. And she says, I'm so sorry. I thought, what? So I messaged her back and I said, what do you mean? And she responded and she said, God, this isn't my place. I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but I want you to go on Facebook. And I said, okay. So I went on Facebook thinking, what the hell's going on here? And I went on, and then I see it at the very top. And it's a post from my best friend, who at the time still living in San Francisco, and he's passed away. Peacefully in his sleep, thank goodness. But JP, my best friend, has died. And the amount of grief that hits you with all in one go. And this is a person who has just given unapologetically and so selflessly to so many people. He's been a part of so many charities, and he's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for so many organizations to help people on their own journey. And I was absolutely crushed, as one would expect, in this moment. And I'm sitting there in grief, thinking, I cannot let his legacy of doing good go to waste, but I have no idea what the hell I can do to help people on their journey. And then it just hits me. It hits me out of absolutely nowhere, and I think, Aidy, you fool, you absolute fool. What's the one thing you've always run away from? What's the one thing that has always haunted you about yourself, that you never felt good enough for, that you always thought was holding you back? It's your Tourette's. And so in that moment, I didn't know how on earth I was going to do it, but I decided that I was going to start openly talking about having Tourette's syndrome and being a voice for other people within the community. Because the only way to create change when we're going through something is to speak about it with pride, and to speak about it in a way that we can help others understand, and to speak about it with self-respect and self-love. So I took that pain from that situation, that pain from that moment that brought me so much sadness, and I took love and understanding from it and turned it into something that would not only help me, but would help so many others on that journey. And that became a central theme moving forward. And to this day, I have my wallet in my bag, which has a picture of JP in it. And I look at it every single day. And even on my Facebook, there's a picture of us of the cover story together. Those two things will never change, because JP brought me so much inspiration in that moment. So we take that, and where do we move on to from there? And again, I want this to be a lesson in learning, in that we are all going to go through some really sad, upsetting times. Yes, you have to grieve. You have to. It's mandatory. You cannot block out that grief. It will only go against you. But there comes a point where you have to take that situation, that struggle, and you've got to find strength in it. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a death, whether it's a heartbreak, it doesn't matter what it is. You just have to have that mentality in your mind to turn around a moment of significant hardship into self-growth. So here we are in the UK, and I started talking about Tourette's syndrome more openly. And it suddenly dawns on me one day, I'm thinking, do you know what? I'm going to get back into TV. I'm not going to let that dream that I had die out. That flame isn't going anywhere. So I started doing little pitches, and I started reaching out to commissioners. But here's the thing. People with Tourette's are not allowed to be on TV. We are not allowed, because we waste production budget. We waste editing budget. All these things, all these stigmas that are held against us for so long. So what do you do in a situation when you're trying to open a door, but that door either is shut in your face or just won't open? You go out, you buy a hammer, you buy some nails, you buy some wood, and you build your own goddamn door. And then you open it, and you walk through it. Right? And that's what so many of you in this room right now are probably at. You're at this point in time where you see something, you have your sights set on something, you really want it, but all these doors are closing, and you feel like no one's listening to you. You gotta do it yourself. No one else is going to do it for you. And that's the biggest wake-up call I ever had. If you're sitting there waiting for someone else to give you an opportunity, stop. Because the second you go out and create your own opportunity, they'll come running to you. That's what happens. So I went out and I said, I'm going to do a little... How long have I got left, by the way?
You've got minus 5 minutes.
Oh, right. Damn. So I'm 5 minutes behind. I'm going to wrap this up quite quickly. Okay, so... what happens at this point? Well, I built that door, I walked through it, and now I'm in a position where, through my own contacts who I built up over the course of 10 years, I made my own TV show. So I went through never being given a chance to be on screen, to now having 3 seasons of an award-winning show on Amazon Prime, to going out there and doing all this advocacy work with so many different charities and being a voice of hope for people who otherwise feel that they have no place to go. The thing about Tourette's is, and this is a harrowing statistic, and so I'll end on a slightly happier note, 48% of people with Tourette's syndrome consider ending their lives. 48% of people with Tourette's syndrome consider ending their lives. And when I was 15, I nearly became one of those statistics. Thank God I didn't, and thank God so many others are now trying to change that way of that situation they're in because of amazing opportunities like this to be able to speak about things so openly. But you know what? We need to be the change we seek. That's one of my first quotes. And the second one is, there's strength in the struggle. Every struggle you go through, every moment you think where everything is coming to an end or a close or it's too difficult, keep going, persevere, push through, and be the change that you want in the world. If you have an idea, put as much as you possibly can into it, because I guarantee you if you do, it will happen. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you all today. And you know what? Next time you're sitting there really wanting to get something done, you think you have a weakness, whatever it might be, everything is subjected to us. Turn your weakness into your greatest strength. Love it, harness it, and be a force of goddamn nature. Thank you.